from the depth instant tutorial.
Balloons, balloons, balloons. Balloons is a nice light little craft that it's great for reconnaissance or whatever. It can be very cheap, and we're going to build one right now. We're going to build a very small balloon. So when you're building a balloon, you need to think about weight very much. You will almost exclusively use either wood or lightweight alloy. When building a balloon, it can be a smart idea to build symmetrically, because when we're working with unpowered balloons, the forces are very small and you need to make sure that the drag and the mass is kind of at the same place. Now we have built a little main structure for our tiny balloon, and we're going to go to the air tab. Onto the air tab we're going to go with hot air balloon deployer, and we're going to put one on top of here. Very nice. Now we're going to spawn an AI and to try and set up our little AI. When building a balloon, you can of course have several balloon deployers, but we're building a small one just to show you the principle and to have a little smart reconnaissance craft for Jimodism. We've set up some basic detection and tracking with a 360 radar, a little camera tracker and a wireless snooper. If you want to know more about detection and tracking, please check out our dedicated instant tutorial about that. What we need more on this AI than a basic AI is of course this, an AI PID. This is to help to control the hover of this craft. Alright, so now we're going to go into the AI and set it up. You can select whatever behavior you want for your type of craft, and we are going to select a circle behavior. Circle at distance. Circle at some 400 meters is probably fine. Then we go to adjustments, and here we can set the altitude. We want this craft to be at an altitude of 90 right now. Not very high, but that's what we're going to set it at and not go over 200. Alright then, a combat altitude of say 100 is fine. And there we go. Here we have some troubleshooting if we want to. We are flying, so we can check that to avoid future ones there. We'll go to maneuver tab and select a maneuver. The maneuver we want is airplane 0.1. You can also select hover, but the setup for airplane is easier and makes more sense for this type of craft. Now we are in here and we need to customize this turning settings. We don't want any banking turns, so we're going to set banking turns above to above 180, which means impossible. And we can leave this at 10. The most extreme banking rolls is like just very little, if it would happen to get activated. Alright, then we go there, so far so good. Now we can go with hover, and we click enable, and we use our only PID for the hover. Then we can click on this to edit it. And let's see here, the PID is set to this, and derivate time. We can see if this makes sense or not. We're just going to close down the AI menu, and we're going to go into this craft, and we're going to set Streve and hover. Click this and select hover on 1 on the balloon there. And if we unfreeze it, it should go up. And now you can see it controls the size of this balloon a little bit. And now we got some funny settings going on here, because I saw that our altitude is 20, not 90. I don't know if that's my mistake, but we set it to 90. You can see that now it controls altitude perfectly by itself. And we can of course go into this hover controller or hover PID and change the gain and set point and derivate time to reach different types of values. But the standard value is usually good enough. And there we go, we have an AI that automatically controls our altitude. Very nice. And we can now begin with setting up the movement. Now it's a good time to decide if you want your craft to be powered or unpowered. I will go with unpowered for the time of being, but I might change this later. We will have some kind of forwards propulsion, and the type of propulsion I will go with is daddy blades, because they don't need any engines to run. However, you can make them very much more powerful if you do choose to add engines. Here we have a little daddy blade setup, and if you go into it, you can select motor drive to any amount here if you wanted to use engines to spin, and this will make them much more powerful. In any case, what you want to do is to go into spin rate control and select pusher preset. And now you can see it's moving. And for this craft, it's absolutely much too powerful as it's right now. So we're going to freeze this thing in the air and add some control systems. Our main propulsion was shortened down a little bit, and we have added this little control structure back to this little balloon. Basically, when we're building balloons, it's almost the same thing as building an airplane, and we can build the most simple airplane possible. So we click G to align them forwards or not, and then we can place down some ailerons or tailplanes or whatever we want. So there we can have pitch elevation blocks as well, and that should be fantastic. Just make sure we have the right alignments like that, and we can add some control surfaces there, and we also want some to control roll. And the rollers are of course the ailerons, and we add them to the sides of these little balloon. You can see we're not quite stable yet, and what we can do to fix this is to add more PIDs. And it looks like I accidentally removed my PID and my wireless. Alright. Symmetry planes can be dangerous. Re-adding my wireless snooper, and then we're going to go with PID, and we'll add a bunch of them. They're very cheap. And now we can set yaw, pitch, roll, and hover. And there we have PIDs for all of them. And now we can see that our flight is a little bit more stable than it was before. And we can of course set them up here if we change something there and set it to whatever we need. Now we have added some control surfaces for roll, yaw and pitch, and it's not quite stable. Most usually when you build balloons, some kind of counterweight is necessary. So if we for the time of being just add some counterweights here, for example, you can see that stability is almost fixed. And this is what we need to do. But the counterweight needs to be planned and placed basically when we have finished the whole of the craft. So we cannot really place it quite yet. But we can let it be there right now, and we can add it or remove it later. One thing we want to install in this craft is, however, some kind of weapon system. So we're going to go to AI, local weapon controller, and we're going to select the all-in-one because I have little space. And I'm going to add a simple weapon. I'm going to go for the shard cannon, because we are a circling long distance thing, and perhaps we could hit a shot here and there, and it could be pretty nice. And that of course means that we need to have resources, namely some materials and possibly also a ammo box. Make sure you're not too heavy when building as well, because if you're too heavy, you'll need to add more balloons, and it might mess up your entire plan on how your balloon should look. This is a single balloon craft, and I cannot add more balloons on this without making an entirely big weird structure above this thing. So now we have it here, and I shall indeed make it lighter and make a cabin. Alright, now my little balloon cabin is set up here, or my little cockpit thing. So we can now remove the counterweight and see if it flies and how it flies. And this will decide where we should add a counterweight. And it seems that this particular craft is kind of stable as it is, so that's very nice. We probably don't need a counterweight. Now it's pitching forward a little bit, so perhaps we can add one block of lead down there and see if it helps. Anyways, we want to bring mass and drag as close together as possible if we can, and that would help us with this issue. And if we do have a counterweight, it might actually be a better idea to do it like this. We go into decorations and then we go with chains, and you probably see where I'm going. There we have it. Alright, so if we hang them down a little bit longer, so this looks great with the chains here, then we can get a nicer, more stable movement. Perhaps you saw that we indeed blocked our radar. Well, we can do like this, have this little type of setup, and the radar is now completely unblocked. Very nice. Now, another way we can do to get some lift. Now, we're just a little bit too heavy now to actually not lift. We can set this to upwards force fraction. And this should be positive if the Daddy blade is spinning forwards, but it's in reverse, which means that we need to put in a negative value here. And if we do that, it can be a very small value. Some of the Daddy blade's force will be basically reverted to make it go upwards instead. And this can save us from adding another balloon if we just want a little bit extra altitude, because now we can see that we were actually losing altitude, but now we are gaining altitude again, so now it's absolutely fine. Just one little quick tip more, and that is, this is a great vehicle for reconnaissance and to remove fog of war, especially if we make it go higher. And if we want to do that, we need to go to the AI tab, and we go to strategic antenna, and we put up a little strategic antenna with a couple of dish pieces like this, and it will be better. And if it's even better if it's higher up in the air. So you should probably go into the AI and set it to be minimum altitude to something higher, and it should work perfectly fine. Well, well, well. This has been Jimodism showing you how to make a balloon. Very nice. I hope this tutorial was useful for you, and if it was, leave a like and do check out our other instant tutorial. This is Jimodism signing out.